John Sterling is the father of sports talk radio since the early days at WMCA. To the voice of the team from the Bronx from 1989 to 2024. Some of those years on WABC, Sterling called 5,060 consecutive baseball games.
Yankees win!
And today, John Sterling is on the air on 77 WABC. This is the John Sterling Show. Now, here's John Sterling.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wonderful to be back. I love this show. I have an hour every Saturday from 4 to 5. And we have two great guests. We're going to talk a lot of football and a lot of baseball. But I want to begin by doing this. I know you've read that the president, chairman of the board, whatever, it's his family's team, John Mara, was diagnosed with cancer. I don't know what kind of cancer. The Mara family wants to keep it private. I don't blame them. I have the utmost respect for John Mara. He is, I think, one of the most honest owners in any sport. He really tells you what he thinks. And I just, for a moment, just want to wish him the very best. One thing we know today, cancer is not a sure kill. In many instances, especially if you get it early, it's easily treatable. And I hope that's true for Mr. Mara. And we don't want to lose him. We want him to be the president, owner, and chairman of the board, whatever his title is, of the Giants. And who knows, John? Maybe the Giants are on the way. Maybe Jackson Dart is the beginning. Maybe. We'll talk about that a bit later on. And we're going to go to a break early so I can get my first guest on early, and then he can talk, and man, can he talk. So we'll get back with more on the Sterling Show on this Saturday in just a moment, right here at 77 WABC.
77 scores again.
This is the John Sterling Show. Now, here's John Sterling.
And we go to the 77 WABC actionkarting.com phone line, New York City's premier waste and recycling provider. You will love this guest. You've heard him before. I actually knew him when he was probably about 18. He's not 18 anymore. And I forget how old I am, my goodness. Anyway, he is a member of a great broadcasting family. His grandfather, Harry Carey. His father, Skip Carey. And here is the voice of the St. Louis Cardinals television, Chip Carey. Hello, Chipper. How are you?
Hello, Mr. Sterling. Great to hear your voice. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You know, I was driving into the city for the show, and I didn't realize what happened in the Cubs-Milwaukee game. Well, what happened?
Well, I think the Cubs found out what the rest of Major League Baseball is finding out, is that the Brewers are a pretty good team. The Brewers just somehow, some way find a way with a very athletic and exciting young club that can go toe-to-toe with anybody. And for the smallest market in baseball, they put together one of the biggest ball clubs in baseball. And, Pat Murphy's got a great collegiate atmosphere around that team. They play with reckless abandon and a whole lot of fun, and obviously a whole lot of success with 90-plus wins this year. They're a tough bunch. They're a tough bunch in that ballpark with the roof open. So the Brewers trailed 1-0 after the first half inning and then exploded in the second and chased Matthew Boyd, and they are in great position to win Game 1.
They are indeed. I wanted to ask you about Milwaukee before I saw the big lead. What makes them tick? They had the best record in the major leagues, and believe me, when you look at the Phillies and the Red Sox and the Yankees and the Mets and the Dodgers, boy, did they have a small payroll. So how do they do it?
Well, they do it with excellent drafting, developing, scouting. They make smart trades. Look, this is a club that if you think about what they've done, Brandon Woodruff, terrific pitcher, was sidelined, hurt, bad shoulder, came back this year and has pitched great for them. They traded away Corbin Burns and got Jackson Churio back from the Orioles. That's a pretty good deal. They traded for William Contreras, got him from Atlanta. He's an all-star, one of the best offensive catchers in Major League Baseball. And more than that, they've just drafted well. They draft guys that are athletes. They're baseball players. They don't necessarily have one skill set. They play baseball. They put the ball in play. They don't strike out a lot. They take the extra base. They hit enough home runs, quite obviously. They're tough to strike out. And defensively, they're also very athletic that they cover just about every angle you can shoot for as a hitter in opposition of them. So they're really a fundamentally sound team. They're a team that's lost Josh Hader and Devin Williams. Their bullpen hasn't missed a beat. And so that's a real credit to their front office and the way that they run things. And as I said, Pat Murphy's done an excellent job. And frankly, as I said, the Brewers are probably a blueprint for a lot of mid to small market teams to follow. As you said, John, they don't have a big payroll, but they do a great job of maximizing their resources and winning on the margins so they can go toe-to-toe in the National League with the bigger boys, the Dodgers, the Phillies, and the like.
Well, you know one thing, and you certainly know it because with the Cardinals, you go there all the time. You're in the same division. Milwaukee's a great hitter's ballpark, and the ball flies out, but they're not that kind of a team. So it's even more impressive that they win with not the right team to play in that ballpark. You figure the right team would be the Mets or the Yankees, and a bunch of guys who can hit it out. So they overcome that too.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Milwaukee, as you said, it's a small town. What's great about going there is, in so many ways, you feel like you're walking back into what America in 1955 was like, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
that's kind of the style of baseball they play. They play baseball. It's not home run derby. It's not a 3-outcome team. And as much as a pain in the butt as it is to play them and try to beat them, they really play the game the way it probably was played 50, 60 years ago. And it really is fun. It's really effective. And that's not to say that they aren't as analytically inclined as everybody else. They are, but their players are just, I think, 1 through 26 on their roster so well-rounded that Pat Murphy, or before him, Craig Counsell, had the luxury of plugging a guy in and getting pretty much the same production no matter who that player was. Again, this is a club that lost Willie Adames. They lost Hader. They've lost Devin Williams. They lost Corbin Burns. They haven't missed a beat. That's kind of a really, really good organization.
And, last year, Pat Murphy won the Manager of the Year award, and I've already proclaimed him my Manager of the Year. And by the way, in the American League, that's what I think of Alex Cora, who had to work magic and miracles and changing, I'm a Casey Stengel guy, change his lineup, platoon, and I think he did a fabulous job too. Now, upcoming, Chip, will be, I think, a heavyweight edition of the playoffs in Philadelphia and the Dodgers. They open in Philly tonight. What are your thoughts?
Well, I love the Phillies team. I would like them a lot better if they had Zach Wheeler. That's a big, big loss for them, obviously. Wheeler's out with a thoracic outlet surgery. He'll be back at some point next year. But they've got 3 really, really talented left-handed starters, Christopher Sanchez, an under-the-radar Cy Young candidate. They've got a very good bullpen. They've got Bryce Harper. They have that home crowd. As you know, Citizens Bank is it's a crazy place when it's packed and it's playoff baseball. I think the wild card in that series is what's Ohtani going to do on the mound? How effective will he be pitching? As we know, the Dodgers this year have had all kinds of trouble keeping a rotation in line, but to their credit, using 15, 16, 17 starters, whatever it was, they got there. They won the West, and they advanced by sweeping Cincinnati. But the Dodgers are just as star-studded. They've got a very dynamic offense. Freddie Freeman hit his first big league home run in Citizens Bank Park. That was against Roy Halladay as a rookie in Atlanta. So that's always a special place for him. Mookie Betts, I think, is, as we all know, just a terrific player no matter where and how you play them. And the Dodgers have done it before. I think the Phillies have something to prove. They are in the middle of their championship window, but it gets narrower and narrower with each passing year. And Bryce Harper, as great as he is, isn't getting any younger. For me, the fun World Series would be the Phillies and the Mariners. Don't know if it's going to work out that way, but ultimately I think home field advantage is going to matter the most in this series. The Phillies have it, and we'll see if they can take advantage of it.
Yeah, I always feel, looking at it from a Yankee angle, that Philadelphia would be very tough for the Yanks, and you named it at the beginning. They have 3 really good left-handers. They are missing Wheeler.
Yep.
But most teams are missing somebody at this time of the year.
And it's not like they lost Zach 2 weeks ago. They've pitched without him for a couple of months, so it's not like it's a new deal. And in the first, even in this round, you can get away with 3 starters. So that part won't be crushing. It's when you get to the LCS or World Series that they're really, really going to miss him.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Philadelphia has some decisions to make. I don't think they're really very tough decisions, but one thing, Chip, they have to sign Schwarber, and who hit 54 home runs this year. My goodness. And he did it in his option year, in his free agent year. And Mr. Schwarber is going to be a very well-to-do young man.
Yeah, he's not hurting as it is, but you're right. This was the year of the home run. All these guys blasting 50 homers. Ohtani did it. Schwarber did it. Judge did it, of course, with the Yankees. I think I may have left somebody off the list. I don't have my stat sheet in front of me.
Raleigh.
Raleigh, that's it. Cal Raleigh, yes, in Seattle had 60. Schwarber's a great player. He's going to be very highly sought after. It's funny how the game has changed. We were talking about this with our manager, Oliver Marmol, and what the Cardinals are going to try to do. The DH spot in the National League, certainly, it has been that way in the American League forever. But in our league, as we're learning how to use that position, it's not just a place where old guys go to die. It's also not a place where you give guys days off and just put a bat in there for a day. The really good teams are the teams whose DH is a guy that hits 30, 40, or 50 home runs. And that's a huge, huge leg up for the Phillies if they can have Schwarber in that spot. He's instant offense leading off. And for the opposing pitcher, he knows he's on red alert the moment he toes the slab and gets ready to go to work. So certainly the Cardinals are looking for that kind of impact player. Ooh. Don't know if they're going to afford a guy like Kyle Schwarber. I doubt it. But there will be a lot of teams after his services, no question about it. He's had a fabulous year. He's a great dude. And as I said, he'll be a huge impact guy if they get to a Phillies-Yankees World Series with that short porch and right.
Yeah, he doesn't need the short porch.
No, everything's short for him.
I've seen him hit home runs deep in the upper deck in Philly and in right center. But yeah, I don't think the Yankees are going to try to sign him. But he would be lethal with the right field in
no question
in Yankee Stadium. Well, what were your thoughts? I imagine your thoughts were great about Cam Schlittler's game the other day against Boston.
Isn't that great? Guys that people outside of New York know almost, if not nothing about, get to pitch on baseball's brightest stage like that, and they come through. And that's what's so fun about the playoffs. It's always the unlikely hero. And that's what is so romantic about our game. You think of the Braves, where most of my baseball career was spent, and that's a guy by the name of Mark Lemke. He and Jeff Blauser teamed up the middle, and Lemke played second base and goes on to have an unbelievable league championship series and World Series and becomes a legend for the Braves because of his hitting and defensive heroics. It's not always the stars that shine in October, and that's why I think so many people love the game, is you don't know who's going to seize that opportunity and make a name for himself and set his future and his team's future as well. And so Cam was awesome against the Red Sox. That's a great sign for the Yankees, who obviously are without Garrett Cole. Now Cam knows he can do it again. He knows what that moment is like. He knows what the pressure is all about. I don't think he'll be intimidated in his next opportunity, and that's ultimately great for New York.
Well, someone wrote in a newspaper, one of those coming from their smartphone, he said that what Schlittler did was emulate Clemens, Gooden, Seaver, and you know what? Right. When you have 12 strikeouts, no walks, no runs, and you're playing in the 7th game, and it is a 7th game.
Right.
And it's in Yankee Stadium, and it's against the Red Sox. he'll never have a tougher outing going in. I mean,
no. And now, throw Bob Gibson in there for good measure, too.
yes.
No pressure
I think it was in there, too.
Yeah. No pressure for that young man, but he'll never have to buy a beer in New York for the rest of his life.
No.
And for guys like that, that's, as I said, what's so beautiful about our game. You don't know what's going to happen. I mean, our mutual coworker, Glenn Diamond, always used to say about a broadcast, you're there to expect the unexpected. And I don't think anybody in baseball expected Cam to do what he did, do it as effectively and as impressively as he did. And now the challenge for him is, well, people are going to expect that kind of performance every time, and we know that's so unlikely. But like Kerry Wood, when he struck out 20 Astros in his rookie season in 1998, that game was his coming out party. He announced his presence with authority, and now the rest of baseball's taking notice. It'll be fun to watch him do his thing the rest of his career.
Well, I think both of us could name names of people who came out of nowhere and became big World Series heroes. Denny Doyle of the Yankees once hit about 400. Dusty Rhodes of the Giants, and Gene Tennis. Then no one knew who he was. He hit 2 home runs in a World Series game. So I bet you could.
That's the beauty of it. That's the absolute beauty of it. I mean, there's a guy named Frank Home Run Baker who played 100 years ago, and he was called Home Run Baker not because he hit a lot of them. I think he hit 10 for the year. But as you said, he had a couple in the World Series, and it was not the number, but when. And now is the when, and that's what's so, as I said, romantic about baseball.
Well, you obviously like the Seattle Mariners, who have a very good pitching staff. And they certainly improved their offense by getting both a first baseman and a third baseman on the trade deadline. So, I haven't seen them since they added those 2 players. But Brian Wu is not going to pitch, so they lose a pretty good pitcher.
Yeah, that's going to hurt them. Their pitching staff was awesome. They've done a really, really good job. Kevin Seitzer's the hitting coach out there. And top to bottom, that's another team that's like Milwaukee, very athletic, but a lot more power, I think, up and down their lineup. And don't underestimate the power of T-Mobile Park where they play the Braves. The Cardinals were there 2 weeks before the end of the regular season, and that place was up for grabs. The Cardinals weren't playing for anything. We were there to hopefully win a series and got swept. But every time Cal Raleigh came up, it was as if Ken Griffey Jr., Jay Buhner, and Ichiro were coming up in the bottom of the 9th inning with the bases loaded. It was truly an electric atmosphere. And for them, in Seattle, they've had such they're an amazing franchise, if I may digress. When Lou Piniella came there in the early 90s, he had Griffey and Buhner and Randy Johnson, Tino Martinez, Omar Vizquel.
And you're forgetting another Martinez, Edgar.
Oh, Edgar. He was pretty good.
Fairly good.
And that group was good, but they didn't know how to win yet. And Lou Piniella, in my opinion, saved baseball in Seattle. You're very familiar with Lou's pedigree and what he did out there. But I think he really helped save the Mariners franchise from leaving. They ended up winning 116 games and not winning the World Series. Then they traded guys away, and then it was the Ichiro wave, and his group came in. And then after Ichiro, this next crop of guys that's there. So they've done a really good job of reconstituting their franchise and putting a really, really good product on the field. And so I root for them. I root for Kevin Seitzer, who I knew for so many years with the Braves. And that group's a dangerous bunch, and playing in that ballpark in the Pacific Northwest where they get to play without the bright lights of baseball on them, I think is a big advantage for them. And it would not surprise me at all to see them really, really get on a roll. Losing Brian Wu hurts. They got an excellent bullpen, and the rest of their staff is really, really talented, too. So the Mariners have all the pieces in place. But as we know, just because you have the pieces in place doesn't mean you win anything. That's up to them to go do it, and we'll see if they can.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. You mentioned something, and it triggered something in my mind I wanted to get to at the beginning. The Mets fired everyone on their bench, all the coaches. Now they're keeping Mendy, but one thing that really bothered me, Chip, they fired a friend of mine. That's why it bothers me. Eric Chavez. He's a really good guy. He's super intelligent. He was a great player. He's everything you'd want to talk to your hitters. And the Mets had a lot of problems. They didn't have any problems on offense. The biggest year, Nimmo had his biggest year. Soto had his biggest year. Alonso had his biggest year, and Lindor had his normal great year. Now, I know you're not the one to answer this, but why did they fire Eric Chavez?
It's a good question. Don't know the inner workings of the Mets. I do know that from an offensive standpoint, they were really streaky. The Cardinals saw them early in the season, and when I saw them, when they were really pitching well, they had everything go. Sengo's, ghost fork was doing its thing. I mean, they looked, to me, I said, this is the Mets team that the Mets fans have dreamed about forever. They were not the Mets team that the Braves always seem to catch and knock off in the last weekend of the season. I thought to myself, this is a team that has all the pieces in place to win the World Series. It just didn't happen for them. As you know, it's easier to fire coaches than it is players, but they're kind of at a crossroads now. They spent $300 million and it hasn't gotten them anything. And now they've got to figure out if they're going to be able to keep Pete Alonso, who's going to exercise his option, and he should.
Yes.
Lindor's got the big contract. You've got Soto, who had a big offensive year, but everybody in baseball wonders, how's that contract going to look 3-4 years from now? Is Soto going to be a glorified DH, or is he going to be able to continue to play in the outfield? Don't know if that's going to stay possible for him, or if he opts out too. But look, the advantage they have, as you know, they have a motivated owner, they have a motivated fan base, they have basically an open checkbook. And so they're going to do whatever they can to get back on top in the National League East. It wouldn't surprise me if they're very active in free agency, that they go back out and get the players they can. It's New York. You know very well the tabloid war that exists. They want to knock the Yankees off the back pages of all the tabloids if they can. And the only way to do that is to win, and they didn't do it. So they were on the backs of the tabloids for all the wrong reasons, and
right.
They certainly want to change that.
Well, Chip, I'm sure you do know because you know what you're talking about. But the Mets, who were in first place at a certain time in June, and do you know from, let's say, the middle of June to the end of the year, they played 17, 18 games under 500?
Yeah.
With all those players that I named?
Yeah, it's amazing, right? And that's what I said before. It's not how you play, but when you play, or when you play them. When I saw the Mets in April, or late April, I think it was, I said, this team's going to win the World Series. It's the best team I'd seen come out of New York in a long time. They did everything right. And then, from the time mid-June hits, all of a sudden the light switch went on and they became a different team. Lindor had a horrible stretch. Their pitching collapsed. Senga was sent to the minor leagues. Guys were getting hurt. They were a real mess, and they never could get themselves out of that death spiral. They got to, watch the playoffs, and that's disappointing for the fans in New York.
Ooh. Because
as you said, this is the time for stars too, and a lot of stars that baseball was hoping to be in the big dance aren't going to be there.
Well, it was, I don't know the real reason, but their pitching wasn't good, and they also don't have a very good defensive team.
Correct. Correct. And then, a base runner in the playoffs is a rally. Doesn't matter how many outs there are. You've seen it a million times. And I think the last time we talked about this. I think so many people in our sport are so much smarter than I am. And I'm the first to admit that. However, I think that we overcomplicate the fundamental facet of our game. Number one, baseball is the only game where the defense has the ball. And number two, if you don't pitch it and you don't catch it, you're not going to win. And you contrast the Mets and all their star power and their power and the big names and the big market with a team like Milwaukee that did not do those things that the Mets were guilty of for much of the season. And I think you can understand why one team advanced and one team didn't.
I think you make a great point, which is why I love having you on the show, and I demand that you come back. So
I would love to.
Okay. Thank you, Chip Caray. Have a very good winter, and we will talk to you soon, probably before
I look forward to it.
Probably before the playoffs are over. So there.
You got it. We'd love to join you again, John. All the best. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Chip. Before we do anything else, let's break the station apart. Good idea? Jonas Jackson thinks it's a good idea. And so does Vincent Laspinoso. He thinks it's a good idea, too, as well as our executive producer today, Elias Raff. Anyway, we'll get back. We're going to do football in just a moment, but we're going to break the station apart, and that station is 77 WABC.
You'll win. Let's go with 77 WABC.
This is the John Sterling Show. Now, here's John Sterling.
And we are back, and we have our guest all lined up, ready to go. But before we do that, we go to the 77 WABC ActionCarting.com phone line. New York City's premier waste and recycling provider. Kim Jones, although she's a beautiful young lady, she's a football person. And she has broadcast football on WFAN. She's broadcast football on the National Football League Network and for Newsday on the island. And she's a good friend of mine. So here is Kim Jones. And Kim, first of all, how are you doing?
Currently out of work, John, so maybe you could work some magic for me. How's that?
Well, I'll work at it tomorrow. Well, no question about it. Let's talk about the New York football teams at the beginning.
Let's do it.
Because it's been so many years, it seems almost impossible that a team can be bad for that many years. Although the Detroit Lions, before Dan Campbell got there, they weren't good for about 60 years. 60! They may have made a couple of playoffs, but that's all. Anyway, let's begin with the Jets. They play Dallas tomorrow in the Meadowlands. Justin Fields is the new quarterback. Some of your thoughts?
Well, someone needs to jolt the Jets a little bit. I didn't try for that alliteration, and it just happened. But, the Jets can't find their way. They look like a team that, I'll tell you, John, earlier, I think you can look at seasons and kind of sort of diagnose them. Now, that doesn't mean the Jets can't run off a few good wins here and feel good about themselves, and then everything changes for a team, right? We've all seen that happen, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, whatever, that happens. But the Jets now, for a couple of administrations, just can't get it together. And I'm not close enough, candidly, to the Jets to diagnose that for you or for the listeners or anything else. But clearly, and I know there'll be some eye rolls here from Jets fans if they're listening, clearly something is very wrong with this franchise. And multiple administrations have not been able to get it together. That is the alarming part, because the NFL, generally speaking, it doesn't always allow for this, but often allows for a team to have a bad year or two, but then rise. And that's why we all love the NFL. It has that propensity to it. But with the Jets right now, they can't get out of their own way. And I have to believe there are people in that administration really working hard on why this happens now year after year with the New York Jets.
Well, one thing, all these teams beginning are based on the quarterback.
Yep.
Now,
Yep.
Fields has great legs. The touchdown run that he had against Miami, I thought was fabulous when he reversed field and all. I thought that was fabulous. But I haven't seen enough of his arm. It's one thing to have a strong arm, which he might have. Someone in the business told me, well, he has a really strong arm. But that's not how you complete tough passes, in tight windows. And I'll ask for your thoughts. Right now, I don't know if Justin Fields is a good enough passer.
I don't know that he is either. And I also wonder about mentoring and that kind of thing. Listen, it's dog eat dog, right? In the world of professional sports, but there has to be someone, and certainly coaching comes into this as well, but who can say to Fields, we need this kind of progress from you. The problem, John, is once an NFL season starts rolling, they go so fast that I think sometimes, especially for a younger player, which he still is, of course, to kind of corral it. You know, it's already getting late early, to use a cliche. So, what I know would concern me the most is the season after season declines, because to me that speaks to the entire franchise, not just a quarterback who probably needs some mentoring and probably, I would say almost certainly needs some confidence.
Well, I just wonder, first of all, I'm not saying he's not, because I haven't seen it.
Right.
But
right.
I haven't seen him throw the ball, and you can't, it sounds so good to say, we're going to run the ball. But once you get behind, then you can't run the ball. You got to throw the ball in the NFL. I mean, it's a quarterback league. It's a passing league. Now, let's go to the other team in New York. Both these teams have disappointed for so long. I was going to mention my last guest, Chip Carey, was talking about how exciting Seattle was to go there. Sure, because they haven't won in so long. Now they have a guy hitting 60 homers and they're in first place. Of course, the place was up for grabs, as Chip said. You know, the New York fans, do they want to win?
Yep.
You can't blame them. I laugh when I read, John Mara does it. John Mara, he'd like to win more than anyone in the world.
Yep.
Anyway, maybe they have the quarterback. I'm not going to fall all over for one game, but tell me what you think about Jackson Dart.
I think he has some moxie. Not a cliche. I think he has a little something to him. I think in this market, John, as you well know, you have to have something to you. If you're gonna handle the ups and downs here. Now, we don't know all about that yet with him. He's just too young, and we've not seen enough. But he does seem to have some, like I said, some moxie. He seems to have a decent grasp of everything. Which, and I don't say that lightly, like, he has a grasp of everything. Good job, Kim. Well, but I can only imagine, because I can't imagine what it is like for these young quarterbacks who get thrust into the starting lineup early because of one reason or another. We've seen it in many teams. Obviously, the Jets and Giants are the ones we talk about most often, but he has to be trying right now to handle an awful lot. And one thing that I would think they are impressing upon him is stay in your lane, do what we are coaching you to do, and everything else right now will take care of itself.
Well, he certainly can run the ball, and I used watching him play in that win over Los Angeles, the Chargers. I used the same word as you did in my mind. I said, this kid has moxie. I like the way he ran the team, and I like the way he ran. I don't know about his arm, because they had him throwing very, very short passes. And it's interesting, this weekend, he plays against a team he probably should beat in New Orleans. They're 2-point underdogs, but I think they should be favored. But then 4 days later, on a Thursday, they have to play the Eagles. So I guess we'll find out a little bit about Mr. Dart, don't you think?
We will. He'll find out a little bit, John, a little bit about himself too, probably in that Eagles game. That's a considerable step up for any team, and certainly a team with a rookie quarterback at this point. And the Eagles aren't, as you know, John, the Eagles aren't going to say like, we kind of feel bad for the kid. I mean,
no.
That's going to be a rough one. In all probability. Now, John, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the kid does have this it factor and he can hold his own, but that's a real tough test.
Yeah. And we're going to find out.
Yeah, exactly.
And these other teams are going to go to school on every tape they have, how to play them. Now, just recently, we have had 2 first-year quarterbacks do very well. J.W. Stroud in Houston and Layden Daniels in Washington. So it can be done, right?
It can be. Washington in particular was really impressive given what had swirled all around that franchise for a long, long time. And then for them to put it together. So sure, it can happen. It can absolutely happen. You have to have some pixie dust though, John. You have to have a little bit of luck in this world. I have to imagine that extends to, NFL football.
Well, it does tell you though what a quarterback will do. Because as you mentioned, Kim, Washington was lousy for a long time, and all of a sudden they got good. Now, they had to have good players around Daniels, but he certainly turned that franchise around. Stroud did as well for 1 year. Mm-hmm. And I guess we have to wait, which is the normal thing. In New York, they don't wait, though. Have you noticed? I do a line all the time that if you lose a game, you're the worst team in the history of that sport. If you win a game, championship. So there's very little middle ground in New York. We're going to come back. Kim, I have to take care of some business. We're going to come back and look at the rest of the NFL, and we'll do that in just a moment. Here at 77, what would you like? Oh, I'm going to do that later. I know what I'm doing. Anyway, we'll do that all at 77 WABC.
77 scores again.
This is the John Sterling Show. Now, here's John Sterling.
And to add to the thought about my hearing aid, let me say something I've almost never said before. It is high. It is far. It is crystal clear. Hear every moment with Phonak Lyric, where better hearing hits it out of the park. Go see Dr. Shelley today, a darling gal, by the way, at New York City Hearing. New York City Hearing, and hear the world again. My guest is Kim Jones, a noted football reporter. Let me ask you this. Is this finally the year for Buffalo?
It might be, John. It might be. If I could introduce you to Josh Allen, you would immediately fall in love with him. And I'm not joking. That was Josh Allen and the Bills provided me with some of my best moments in terms of football coverage in my life. And it was because they were really a good team. They did everything that professionally that you would want a team or a player or anyone else to do. Josh Allen never declined an interview request from me. And listen, if he did, I wouldn't be mad at him. I mean, plenty have. But Josh Allen always got it. It was almost as if, and I promise you, I don't mean this in a weird way whatsoever. I really don't. He's a great young man. He's fantastic. He's awesome. But there were times that he would come over after a win and just kind of look at me, and I'd look at him and I'm like, yeah, of course I'll interview you for NFL Network at this point. He has moxie, he has everything he needs, but he also has sort of a human element. And I'm certainly not knocking other players when I say that, but he was special in that regard, John. And I do miss my times going to see Buffalo, not when it's 12 inches of snow on the ground, but to see that team because of how in Buffalo they comport themselves and how media friendly I have always found them to be. And that's selfish on my part. But listen, John, we all have some who, maybe don't treat you quite as nicely, and you say, boy, I really appreciate the ones who do. And I've been lucky in my career in that regard.
Well, first of all, I couldn't agree with everything you said. It's absolutely true. I love offense in all sports.
Yes.
I want to see the quarterback throw the ball 50 times. So when Josh Allen came into the league, with that howitzer of an arm.
Yeah.
I became a big Josh Allen fan, and he would have won his first playoff game, but the coaches took it away from him. They got conservative, and they lost. They haven't been conservative since.
Exactly.
So I'm with you about Josh Allen. And now, who would be the team to beat in the NFC? We know that Buffalo could be the team to beat in the AFC.
Right.
Along, by the way, we shouldn't eliminate Kansas City this early. But who do you like in the NFC?
Well, it's an easy one when you look at Philly. You know, is Philly going to be able to, muster all of that attention and handle the attention, I should say, and muster everything you have to do to have a winning football season? Obviously, I have no track record doing that, but I can watch and I can see the teams that do it. And can Philly, go back to back? I don't know that, obviously. We're going to find out along the way, but they certainly have a lot of pieces still in place. They have a lot of players who, give a darn. And that matters too. I mean, John, I can't tell you when, there are times when you look at a team and even in let's say in preseason practice in football, you look at a team and you can kind of pick out the guys who are really up for this and the guys who, maybe aren't so sure of themselves, in that moment. And I've seen both along the way. And it's really, that's the one thing I've missed because I haven't been at training camp for the last couple years, is because I can perceive things pretty well. It's hard to do it though if you're not in the arena. And I haven't been in the arena candidly for a couple years now.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry about that. You deserve to be in the arena, and I love your thoughts about Josh Allen because I've thought that about him from afar. Kansas City, they have enough to make a run.
Do they look like a tired team to you in some respect? I mean, the season just started, obviously, but they're going to have to muster something pretty special, I think, John, because they've done it at such a high level, and it has to be very difficult to, to get that train running. Then you stop, but you're winning and it's fun and it's everything else. And then things get a little bit harder. And I have to believe that's a tough time for a lot of teams that are very, very used to winning. But listen, I certainly wouldn't think Andy Reid's thinking that. Obviously, he's not. He doesn't care what I think anyway, but, nor should he. But, when you look at these teams that are putting it together year after year, there has to be a component where they're just worn out at some point, John. I'm not saying the Chiefs are there yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's a bit of a dip this season.
Well, there's no question they're going to go down at some point, and we'll see if it's this year. They have certainly missed their offense. Their offense hasn't been great. Their pass receivers have been hurt. They're slowly but surely coming back. You want to hear a funny thing? I read in one newspaper someone saying Kansas City is going to go out and get Tyreek Hill. In other words, get Hill back again.
Right.
And then he suffered this terrible injury.
And
that's one thing in all these sports. You can't put your finger on something until you know who's injured and how long will they be out.
100%. And that changes everything for teams. Absolutely, John. Yep.
Yeah. So, next week, not next week, Monday, Kansas City is playing Jacksonville in Jacksonville. And I've been waiting for Trevor Lawrence to become a big time player. Maybe this is the year.
Perhaps it is. I mean, it's, it gets late early sometimes, for some of these players that come out, you think they're going to be big deals. They're not big deals. And then, there they are, on the bench watching, players play the sport that they thought they should be playing. But yeah, I think, you look at Lawrence, you look at there are other players obviously in that category, and for some reason I'm not thinking of one at the moment. But yeah, he's a good one, John. He's a good one because it's about the time for him, to make a move, to be one of the better quarterbacks in this league, and we haven't candidly seen that on a regular basis, anything close to it.
Well, what I always think doesn't mean that I'm right, but sometimes, I saw Lawrence play the first couple of years, and no quarterback can play if he's in a prone position. So,
sure.
You have to improve the team, especially the offensive line. I think I may think the offensive line is the most important part of a football team, because if you have an offensive line, you can run and you can protect the quarterback. And if you don't, you can't do either. So actually, I really think of that. If you have a great offensive line, I think you can go. I think it's one of the reasons why Detroit has been so good. I've often kidded, Kim, that Dan Campbell, an ex-Giant, they ought to put
great guy.
They ought to put a statue outside of Ford Field because they were bad for so long.
Yes.
And now they're a very good team.
They are a very good team. They are a very good team. Absolutely. Yeah, you nailed it, John. And Dan Campbell is one of these guys. I remember him way back in the Giants locker room. And I've told Dan this in recent years. I've had a chance to talk to him on occasion here and there. And he, even now when I would bring up things from the past and everything else, he defers everything. And all he wants to talk about is teammates. And this is now him as a head coach. And I've always said that when I have had occasion to talk to him, which has been intermittently over these past several years, he remembers, of course, the locker room as I did, and because it was a big locker room back there for the Giants. They had lots of egos, lots of expectations, and they were good teams. But Dan is one of those guys who never takes any credit. Never. Even as a coach, he disperses it among his players, which I'm sure, makes them very happy, and says a lot about Dan Campbell.
Oh, it sure does. And it said a lot about you, Kim, that you've given me a half hour of great football talk. I guess I love you more than ever. We've been friends a long time.
A long time. It's been great. Yes.
I appreciate you being on, and we certainly will call you again. Okay.
That sounds great, John. Have a great night.
Yes. Thank you. We have a break, right? We don't have a break. Oh, okay. Oh, we did that break. I forget things. Have you noticed? It comes with age, I think. Well, anyway, I wanted to say that about John Mara, and I wanted to talk about Cam Schlittler. The Yankees have done that before. In 1950, a young left-hander from Astoria, Whitey Ford, was brought up, and I think he went 9-1, and the Yankees won the World Series, one of their 5 straight. And they did it again in 1964. They brought up a guy named Mel Stottlemyre at mid-year, and he pitched the Yankees not only to the pennant, they had to come from way behind to do it, but Stottlemyre pitched and won the first game of the World Series, and he lost the last game of the World Series to Bob Gibson. I bring this out all the time. I'm such a Yankee. The Yankees played the 1964 series without their best pitcher, Whitey Ford, and their shortstop, Tony Kubek, and they took it to 7. That's not a disgrace to lose to Gibby, who was one of the greatest pitchers that I have ever seen. Well, we come your way every week from 4 to 5 and talk about sports, which I have lived with my whole life. Am I lucky? I have had sports as like a buddy, a friend, a hobby. And when I was a little boy, I fell in love with basketball, football, baseball, and hockey. And here I am in my 80s, and I love basketball, football, baseball, and hockey, and I will continue to do so. I want to thank our staff. Can't do it without our staff. They are absolutely brilliant. Vincent Lospinoso, Jonas Jackson, and our executive producer, Elias Raff. And I will look for you next Saturday from 4 to 5. This is John Sterling. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to The John Sterling Show. You can hear The John Sterling Show Saturdays at 4 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?